You're quite right, the 3 and 4 won't count. I mean, it seems to me that that's common sense and that's the right of the electorate to decide what they want to do. What I think is likely to happen is that because people will begin to see that under AV their vote does actually make a difference and that they end up having somebody representing them, they're more likely to have somebody representing them, that they actually participated in getting that person elected, they're more likely to go out and vote, and we'll end up having fewer than 29 million people not bothering to vote or spoiling their votes, and that's what it's about as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you, Don. I'm going to take more questions now because I'm aware we're running out of time and I want to get as many as possible. So right at the back, we have
Hi, this is a question to one over here. You suggested that people with learning difficulties such as Asperger's, autism, dyslexia, dyspraxia might struggle to fill in paper. We have a system here in our student union that actually is AD or similar to that. And we have students with dyspraxia, with dyslexia, with autism, with Asperger's and a list of other disabilities that use it just fine. I mean, is there actually any studies that suggest that these people would find alternative vote harder than the already in place system?
Okay, thank you for that question. Given that we have a lot of questions towards the moment, towards Don, have we got any questions towards what Jacob and Megan have said? Perhaps Red, to the back.
It's kind of a more general question about, for this I kind of feel as though getting rid of split votes between parties and similar parties, and also getting rid of the majority of tactical voting seems to be a bit of a no-brainer for me and to go for AV. But there seems to be lots of talk about PR, STV and AV Plus and all these things. And there seems to be an underlying question more about how we have a political system and a parliamentary system and what that is. We have constituency entities, we have national entities. And my question is, do we need to look at the bigger system first, and then around that and what values we need to elect people for, then construct an electoral system that best achieves that, rather than just having a good conversations about who will get in more votes, what is going to happen here, and have a bigger conversation about what we're trying to get them to.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll take a question in the row in front of you now. With hands up.
Okay, question for Don Collier. Because before the 2010 general election, Nick Clegg said that the choice of AV system would be a reasonable and little compromise. What did make the Leave them change their mind once again?
I mean, actually, both the two questions are actually related. The gentleman at the back says that in his view, we should be looking at a wider range of options, and that one of those range of options, in his view, might be one that is more proportional than the current system or AV would be. And I entirely agree with you. If I had a choice as to which voting system I would move to, I would move for a single transferable vote in multi-member constituencies. I won't bother to explain what it is, other than it would lead, in my view, to a much more proportional system. Okay? But that is not what is on offer, and what we were able to get in the compromise deal with the Conservatives was a referendum on AV, not on a more proportional system. So it is better than the current system, which is why I'm supporting it. And in answer to what did Nick Clegg say, Nick Clegg said AV is not a proportional system. Okay, and therefore, he then goes on to say it's a miserable compromise going for AV in terms of going to proportional representation. If you asked him today, did he stand by that? The answer is yes, he does. Do I believe that? Yes, I do. Actually, I would prefer going for a more proportional system. We're both very clear about that. But what's on offer is what we're debating, and what's on offer is either to stay with the current system, which I believe is unfair, or moving to AV, which I think is a significantly fairer system than the current one.
Okay, thank you, Don. Jake, would you like to come back on the point made at the second question on whether does the whole system need to be a bigger picture?
Yeah, I'll come back on a number of things because there have been some various points since I last spoke. First of all, the lady there, I want to answer her point on what I was saying about Australia, Papua New Guinea. That was to answer what the AV campaign has been saying about the virtues of AV. I completely agree with her, and I'm sorry if I didn't make this clear before. It's not AV that causes corruption in Papua New Guinea. It's not the voting system that does it. It's not first past the post that made people in this country fiddle their expenses. And it's wrong to blame first past the post for things that it has no connection with. So that's the point I was making there. The gentleman at the back is spot on. Got a very good answer, I think, from Don Foster on what the Lib Dems really want. That they want to move to a genuinely proportional system. AV remains a miserable little compromise. In my view, it's not as good or as simple as first past the post. It doesn't have those advantages, but it doesn't have the advantages of being proportional either. So, in my view, falls between both stools. In fact, as I was saying, both in 1997 and in 2005, it would have exaggerated the result created by first past the post for the number of seats the Labour Party would have won. So I think AV, if you're in favour of a more proportional system, is not something you should support. The only motive for supporting it is thinking that this is a stepping stone to a further change in our electoral system, and that so comes back to a point that we need to think about how do we want to be represented. Do we want to have constituency MPs, or do you want to have a long list system? And that's another debate that we may come to at a later stage.
Thank you, Jacob. Again, I'm going to take 2 more questions. Okay, fine.
Right. I didn't want this to become a thing about my disability.
Sorry, if you could keep it brief.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it brief. I didn't want it to become a thing about my disability, but trying to do a reaction made it that way. Okay? I want to take you to a world which isn't a university, which isn't a place where there are people to help you. Okay? And that's the world which I live in. And that's the world which the majority of people live in. And it's a very serious point, that it's not easy to put your hand up. It hasn't been easy for me today to put my hand up and say, I have this problem. You've come through a school system which has encouraged and allowed you to do that. Don't believe that's the same as everybody. Because the fact of the matter is, it isn't. 10% of this country have dyslexia. I bet you that less than 1% of this university has dyslexia. And that's just one of the disabilities. So let's not get hung up on this. I think it's a serious point, it's a personal point, it's a point which I feel very strongly about, but it's not the only reason I think that AV is profoundly unfair.
Thank you, Don. I think we've cleared that point up. If I could ask no more questions to be raised on that specific issue, because we could just go circles with it. I'll take John front.
Hello. If I can put a question to the yes to AV side, please. In that, without a doubt, all politicians are looking to save money on behalf of the country at the moment. If AV is not the ideal, and it's only a small step in the way there, is it really value for money?
Okay, thank you. I'm going to take Matt here to take a hand up right at the beginning.
So I'd like to make a few very quick points. First of all, the BNP are actually against AV, so to talk about the BNP as if they're somehow going to benefit from it, they themselves have said they are against it. Also, if the first past the post system is so wonderful, which quite clearly Jacob and Don Collier think it is, in 1951 the Labour Party won the general election on the popular vote, but lost in terms of seats. In fact, the number that Labour got in 1951 was the second highest vote ever recorded in any general election, only topped by John Major in 1992. Also, I'm going to make a very hard point here. The Conservative spokespeople today, I know the word Conservative means traditional. They oppose the national minimum wage, they oppose devolution, they support both of them. When AV wins the referendum, I'm sure they'll probably support that as well.
Thank you for your point. I'll take the gentleman from here.